Jon Stewart and you are having a little war on words.
A comedian's attacking me. Wow.
Daily
he
show.
runs a variety show.
All right, but you know what he's saying about you, that you advise investors.
What are you supposed to be, motherfucker? What, like, are you not a clown with all these sound effects and noises? Like, beep boop, song sing, herp bop it.
Thanks for joining us. I was wondering whether you feel there's a little bit of a sense of overheating. You look at the likes of Tesla and the EV stocks this week. There is a feeling like it's similar to late August, when, of course, we then did have a pullback, not a collapse, but a pullback.
Well, I think that we're
I already did Randy
Quaid.
It was fun.
Group of investors who've come in.
We had a good time
and seem to like anything. I've got Nikola on tonight. That's a hydrogen-based truck company, and I think that people just kind of have belief. They have faith. And it tends to be a younger generation that has faith. I think some of these stocks, yes, have overheated, but I want to go back to the source of why all this is happening, which is science. Science has triumphed. We don't speak enough on the network about how great science has done, because none of us thought this was possible. I remember speaking to the head of one of the major companies that is doing it.
What do they all think science is? That's my question. Like, it does sound very Gorka, eh? Everyone, science is back. That's right. The science boys are back.
And he told me, you know what, we're going to be able to beat this thing 95%. That was about 4 months ago. Well, it seemed fanciful to me. So I think that what's happening is there is happy days are here again, somewhat justified, because if we can get this thing under control, it is going to be like the end of Prohibition.
Well, and we'll be going to Bar San Miguel very, very quickly. Jim,
I hope.
So clearly, if that all plays out, which we all hope it does, one question is whether rates rise. I know you're a long-term bull on companies like Apple. Is there a level of rates that worries you about their multiples?
Well, I still think that we are so low. And look, if J-Pal stays in, and we have Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary, I think that they will choose to raise wisely, as did Janet when she was Fed chief. I had no disrespect to Fed Chief Yellen. And what I really like about this, I've got to tell you, Wilf, I have tremendous respect for Senator Warren, and she knows I feel that way. But there were a lot of people who felt that Senator Warren was going to get the Treasury job, and that's just very bad news for Wells Fargo. And we see Wells as the leader. I mean, Wells Fargo. Can you imagine, Wilf? Wells Fargo is the leader.
And Goldman contributing the most to the Dow's gains today as well. It's definitely part of this whole trend where we've seen a return to value. We've been talking about it for weeks on this network. Jim, do you see this pivot continuing from here now that we've reached 30,000?
Well, look, we don't have any earnings per share coming. And I think that you can dream dreams. Right now, we're in the dreams phase, Leslie. And I think that you can look at Goldman and say, you know, it's only a couple bucks above its tangible book value, which was scrubbed very clean.
This is wild, by the way. This is like, it's just so wild that it keeps happening. It just keeps happening. This to me, I don't know if everyone here has actually read 1984. I know you might know the conservative version of 1984, because that one is quite popular. But in the actual 1984, the book, they speak a lot about the lottery. And there's this idea that it's to pacify the masses, to keep them thinking that they are not, in fact, underneath the boot. They're not underneath the heel of the boot because there's a lure of you could potentially win the lottery one day. And the same thing is being sold to you under this whole capitalist dream, right? You could be, if you just pick yourself up from your bootstraps, rich and successful beyond your wildest dreams. And that's not an exaggeration, by the way. Those are the actual words told to you at Republican conventions. I actually don't mind Arnold Schwarzenegger as far as conservatives go. At least he cares about the environment. That's a big thing. But he actually got out on stage at the Republican convention, I think like 4 cycles ago, and was like, the American dream always has been, if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can achieve anything you want. That's the lie that they're trying to sell you. And that's the same thing with everything that Jim Cramer and all these shows talking to you about the stock market and the potential for you to become rich. If you just listen to a few key things, you play your cards right, and you invest your money properly, this is going to happen to you. You too can live the dream. And it's a lie. All of it. It's an absolute lie. The majority of stocks are owned by a very, very small amount of people. The stocks rise and fall at the hands of the super wealthy. The super wealthy control the stock market. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just the facts. That, like, if you want to look at the numbers, the majority of stocks are owned by a small minority of people. They control the market. They choose whether or not it goes up or down. A lot of the times, this happens automatically via algorithms. That's how this shit happens. It's not even people who are insidiously trying to change the world, like, oh, I can't wait to destroy the poor today. It's, I have people on my behalf who are trying to make me as much money as possible. That's how the whole system works. They sit behind the scenes and they try to make them even more money. And guess what? When things are falling apart, when it looks like the whole stocks are about to fall over, well, that's where you come in. That's where the government comes in. Yes, that's when the good old Federal Reserve can inject trillions of dollars into the stock market. And I know right away everyone is going to stop me now. They're going to be like, oh, you're just letting out a touch lefty who doesn't understand how the whole system works. You get that money back. It comes in the form of loans. The money comes right back to you, the taxpayer. It's to prop up this broken house of cards. That's the entire purpose of this, which just keeps investor confidence going along. That's the entire point. That's the 3-card Monty that's being played every day in front of you. And yet you have people like this who make you feel as if there's this illusion that it's a potential power that all of you could have one day if you just play your cards right. If you pick yourself up by your bootstraps, if you work hard, you can join the elites, the successful, because again, your worth is based on your success, and your success is based on your job and your money. I mean, fuck, that plays all the way into every element of life. How many people here have felt emasculated because they didn't earn enough money? Like, fuck, that has happened to me multiple times in my life where I actually feel like I'm not as good of a provider. I'm not as good of a man. I don't identify as a human being as much unless I'm making enough money to support my partner at the time. If I had kids, it would be to support my family or to help out others. And when you're rich, you then get to be benevolent. Isn't it wonderful? When you're wealthy, you then get to dole out charity as if you are one of the true ones, the successful ones. What's the name of that Nazi captain played by Ralph Fiennes in that movie where he's like, I forgive you. I forgive you. You get that power, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, I'm one of the good ones, and like, oh, these homeless vagrants, don't worry, I give them $20 once a year because I am again one of the benevolent ones, and yes, I forgive you.
So, I mean, you could say, listen, what is this doing at 9 times earlier? I mean, James Foreman, Morgan Stanley, what is that stock doing down there? I mean, that's how people feel. So, Leslie, I think that there's this overall sense that segment has been forgotten and can now be bought because the multiples are so low versus some of the other things that we talk about.
Morgan Stanley's now up 25% year to date. Had a great run in the last couple of months.
What's it done? What's it done lately? You know, what's it done the last few years?
I know only too well all the banks in general.
He's done a lot, Gorman. We forget that it's not the same Morgan Stanley. He's done a lot to be able to make it so it's a more democratic, it's kind of a more, less ethereal, more down-to-earth bank. That's what I like. Just like he is.
Yeah,
he doesn't
care about me
we
now.
don't talk about like that, but that's what he is.
And over 50% from sort of sticky wealth management as well these days. Jim, I wanted to ask you mentioned Nicholas coming up. What else is on the show? You've got an earnings mover.
Well, we have Hewlett Packard now. Now understand HP. What they've done is they've done these numbers with buybacks. With good growth in printing, with a dividend boost, not necessarily with personal computers. So there will be some people who say, you know what, this story's not good enough. I come back and say, look, this is a huge cash generator that pays a good yield and is doing quite well. So you can just be in it if you want to be able to get a good return. But going back to where I think things are overheated, Wolf, I think that some of the retailers have gotten overheated and that we're going to revert to Watch. We're going to revert right back to Walmart, to Amazon.
I did love that. Okay, if you don't know what Fu Manchu is referring to, back in the day, and this is back when Lance was watching The Daily Show every single day. Like that's one of my origin stories. I do love doing this for a living because I absolutely adore the ability to make people smile and feel a little bit happier. That's one thing that's always given me joy. And one person who used to do that for me was Jon Stewart. And I know Jon Stewart is the libbiest lib that ever lived, even though I think he's more of a demsock than he is a lib. But anyways, Jon Stewart did have a moment with Jim Cramer, and this was right after the 2008 financial crisis. And Jon Stewart was quite vocal about this. That at the end of the day, we're not actually taking anyone to task. All the things that caused this crisis in the first place that we're supposed to be impervious to in the richest country in the world, it seems like there's this different game being played played behind the scenes. That's when you used to see Main Street versus Wall Street. It was a talking point with every politician. And then along came Jim Cramer, who again was inflating all these shitty stocks all the time. A lot of the stocks, the Bear Stearns stocks, the AIG stocks, the ones that of course were consolidated market debt, mortgage debts. That's what they were doing. I mean, the whole 2008 financial crisis, if you don't know the Coles notes of it, it occurred because people were consolidating shitty housing debts. And then they were saying, this is a good way to make money. If we consolidate all these debts, we can actually share. We can share the debts and sell that as its own independent stock. And then people can gamble on that, because you can gamble in stocks, by the way. I'm not talking about just the idea that stocks are legalized gambling. They are. But on top of that, you can gamble within the stocks on whether or not something is going to crash or fail. You get to gamble on that. And you can bet whether or not that's going to be a success or a failure in the market. It sounds ludicrous, but it's entirely true. And this motherfucker was one of the people who was pushing these really shitty, toxic, consolidated mortgage stocks. And all of a sudden, of course, it's fine as long as the housing prices keep going up. None of this matters because everyone, even though they have these ballooning amounts of debt, if the price of their houses keeps increasing in value, then the debts won't matter as much. Then it doesn't matter because, yeah, they're deeply in debt, but their house is worth so much money. So again, we don't need to foreclose on their houses yet until that's not the case anymore. And then when the housing market crashes, so too does this entire, again, house of cards that is set up. And so Jon Stewart got really mad about that. Now, one of the reasons being is that his mother lost a lot of her money in savings, but Jon Stewart still is able to afford to get out of this problem. He's incredibly wealthy. He's worth tens of millions of dollars, so he's never going to suffer for it. But I did love one of the things that he said, because people always say this, and I think if I ever become as successful as Mike from PA or as Hassan Piker, people will say the same thing to me. Well, Lance, you're doing okay. Like you're doing fine. Why the hell are you talking about these points? Like why'd you even bring this up? And it's like Jon Stewart said to him, he's like, because I get it, I'm rich, but he's like, that's why I want you to tax the fuck out of me. He's like, I want you to tax it. I want you to take that wealth and I want you to tax every rich person because I want that redistributed. And he's like, and people don't do it out of the goodness of their hearts. There's no such thing as people suddenly, by virtue of donating all this money to charity, suddenly becoming benevolent. That's going back to that thing I was talking about before. Remember when I was saying you were one of these benevolent rich people, and it's like, yeah, I forgive you. Yes, I will dole out my scraps to you today. They don't do that. Like, we know they don't do that because right now we're witnessing one of the greatest catastrophes, an actual pandemic. We're living through it, and they're not helping. They're not using their vast amounts of wealth. They're just becoming richer. That's all they're doing. They're becoming more wealthy. While people are losing their jobs en masse, and they're dying, and they're starving, and they don't have enough to eat. And Jeff Bezos is richer now than he ever has been. It's been wonderful for them all. Like it's been just infinitely better. They're making profit. They're living off this. So fuck Jim Cramer.
To Target, to Costco, and Home Depot. Why? Because of the number of cases we get per day. And how scary it is. I mean, I don't mean to scare anybody out there, but I don't know about you. I mean, I used to have 25 people at Thanksgiving. I'm angling for 4.
I guess it's a little easier to cook for 4 on the bright side, Jim.
Well, I fried a turkey a couple of years ago. It was terrible, Leslie. I put it in the oil. Everything was fine. And then there was no bird. I mean, I had to go to Whole Foods. You know what I mean? So I think that we are all in a moment where I think...
Oh, I fucking love Sorry to Bother You. Yes. Boots Riley can do no wrong. Fuck yeah. Boots Riley is so based. That movie, there was so many, like, around that time, everyone's like, wow, there's a lot of anti-capitalist cinema coming out. Have you seen Parasite? And I was like, I have seen Parasite. It was lovely. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a good movie. Sorry to Bother You was a cinematic experience that I adored. I saw it in one of those small little movie theaters. This was the pre-COVID times, and it was one of those. I think I took maybe an in-law or two to go see it, and then I was there, and it was filled with old people because it was in the afternoon. So it was one of those things where there was a lot of grandmas and grandpas in this movie theater, and I lost my shit. Like I was howling and crying with laughter. Especially, no spoilers, but once they started talking about the horse cocks, it just the movie spoke to me on so many levels. It was just it was so funny. It was so good. It's like that's got to be one of my favorite movies. So yeah, I cannot recommend Sorry to Bother You enough. We should watch that movie. That would be a really fun movie night.
We're kind of so thrilled about science. But we're also personally,
I know, it was his first
a foot
movie.
race between the virus and the vaccine. The vaccine's going to win for most of us, I hope. I want everyone to have a great Thanksgiving.
oh yeah, please have a great Thanksgiving. Keep investing money in these Ponzi schemes. Don't think about it. I just keep. If you keep putting money into the Ponzi scheme, they keep giving me a job. I got to do this. Don't think about it.
I can't reconcile the brilliance and knowledge that you have of the intricacies of the market with the crazy bull I see you do every night.
There's a market for it, and you give it to them, and I think
there's a market for cocaine and hookers. Well, you knew what the banks were doing, and yet we're touting it for months and months. The entire network was. And so now to pretend that this was some sort of crazy once-in-a-lifetime tsunami that nobody could have seen coming is disingenuous at best and criminal at worst.
Like a prosecutor bearing down on a decidedly uncomfortable witness, Stewart argued that the financial network, and by extension much of the business press, had given the public a false sense of financial security.
The Bulls and the Bears are duking it out.
But as Stewart himself said, Jim Cramer was not the real target of his anger.
The voice of experience you can trust.
And CNBC is at root a symptom of what has happened over the last year and a half. It's a network with a very small audience, about 300,000.
And you guys knew that that was going...
The core of Stewart's anger is his belief that in its coverage and in its lack of skepticism, much of the press was painting one picture to the public while knowing full well that the reality was very different.
That it is a game that you know is going on, but that you go on television as a financial network and pretend isn't happening.
Actually, says New Yorker financial writer Jim Stewart, much of Wall Street's problem was that it fooled itself.
A lot of guys on Wall Street, one way or another, drank their own Kool-Aid.
Now, with the disappearance of $50 trillion, 4.5 million jobs, and an immeasurable loss of financial well-being, the anger at what has happened is showing up across the media universe. It reaches from ABC News, which followed the corporate jet travels of Bank of America CEO with OJ-like focus, to a piece on a lavish weekend party thrown by a Chicago bank. That aired on TMZ, a site mostly featuring the misbehavior of celebrities. But the real issue is this: how do we get the hard questions asked before things go wrong? That...
Oh, you won't do that. You don't give a fuck. You want to make the monies. You want to keep making the monies. Because you love the monies.
Jim Cramer, I apologize. That was out of context. Technically, you were correct. You weren't suggesting to buy Bear Stearns. That was something that you did 5 days earlier in your buy or sell segment.
I believe in the Bear franchise. You know what? It's 69 bucks. I'm not giving up on this thing.
Yeah! Of course, while Cramer wasn't giving up on Bear at 69, 11 days later, the stock market was more comfortable with it at 2. But it's all sort of equivocal. It's on. I'm reiterating. I like Bear at 60s. I like Bear in 70s. He's not saying literally, I'm asking you to buy Bear Stearns. For that, you'd have to go back a full 7 weeks before the stock completely collapsed.
I'm asking people who are watching this video to buy Bear Stearns.
Now, that was 7 weeks before it collapsed. In the interest of context, continue.
I'm asking people who are watching this video to buy Bear Stearns. Now, Bear Stearns acts much better than it should. Now, that's just intuition. And I don't want to put too much faith in intuition, but I have had good intuition over 29 years of investing. And I just think that this one has a very big upside, very limited downside here. It is, I think that last quarter they've staunched the losses. They're very good at cutting their losses at Bear. But Bear, I believe, is for sale, and I think there are many buyers.
Could be a bidding more.
Yes.
All right, Jim Cramer, you said it here.
Telling
Wall
people
Street
to buy
Confidential.
Bear.
Buy Bear.
You!
Jon Stewart and you are having a little war on words.
A comedian. A comedian's attacking me. Wow.
Daily
he
show.
runs a variety show.
All right, but you know what he's saying about you, that you advise investors.
What are you supposed to be, motherfucker? What, like, are you not a clown with all these sound effects and noises? Like, beep boop, song sing her bop it.
To buy Bear Stearns. You said you were taken out of context.
On October 6th of 2008, I came on this show and did something you're never supposed to do if you have a stock show. I said people should sell everything.
but that was 35% ago. I mean, whatever he says, Bear Stearns this or that was a call that should have wrecked my career, and it would have if the market gone up. I stuck my neck out and did it, and saved a lot of people money.
Let's show the tape that he from last night, okay? What he said about you.
Jim Cramer, I apologize. That was out of context. Technically, you were correct. You weren't suggesting to buy Bear Stearns. That was something that you did 5 days earlier in your buy or sell segment.
I believe in the Bear franchise. You know what? It's $69. I'm not giving up on the thing.
He's not saying literally, I'm asking you to buy Bear Stearns. For that, you'd have to go back a full 7 weeks before the stock completely collapsed.
I'm asking people who are watching this video to buy Bear Stearns.
Did you make a mistake?
Did I make a mistake? Okay, well, first of all, anytime you recommend a stock and it goes down, you've made a mistake. Here's a shocker. Almost every stock is down. Any stock you recommended is bad. You know, Warren Buffett, I could run tapes for him. He would look like a complete fool. This is a terrible market, which is why I told people to sell everything. But you think he's going to run that tape? No, because he's got a comedy show.
Man, he was so whiny about this whole thing too. And like as soon as he would get called out on it, immediately, like most of these fucking motherfuckers, he would start doing that whole like victimhood thing. Like, it's really hard. You don't know how hard it is to do what I do. You're like, Jesus Christ, do you know how many people are homeless? Do you know how many people? I think 7 million people lost their homes in the 2008 financial crisis in the U.S. 7 million. 7 million people lost their homes. And you're going to sit there and cry, you rich motherfucker who's been just pushing the shit when you get paid in fucking full by all these fucking corporations. Billionaires paying millionaires to keep poor people poor. That's the fucking pipeline. And you're at the fucking center of it. And you know that's the thing. And you're getting called out for it. That was why this was beautiful. Because you were getting called out for it publicly. And you couldn't take it. That was why this whole, it's so hard.
Did you regret that you went on The Daily Show in the first place?
No one wants to suffer a beatdown. No one wants to be humiliated or embarrassed. And I would include myself in that group.
So that's a yes?
No, I was shocked at his behavior. But, you know, I came in on as a gentleman, and I wanted to take the high road, and I had been pretty much led to believe that it would be fun. That was obviously incredibly wrong. You know, when you have things in life where you get defined by something that is really unfortunate because you don't think it's you, you tend to want to look back and blame the other person.
I thought it was going to be fun. Even though for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, actually, he had been ripping into you daily.
I wish that Jon Stewart had watched my show a couple times. I think he obviously got clips. I wish he knew.
Oh, they had watched it. They mined your show. They mined your show for all the disingenuous bullshit you were pushing on people every single day. Again, you made people broke. Like people who don't have a lot of savings, who don't have a lot of money, who watch your show, like the average viewer, they weren't like. It's not millionaires, okay? It's definitely not people who have a lot of money in stocks who watch you to get their information on how to invest. That's not the target demographic, all right? It's for people who are thinking, well, maybe I should invest this $1,000 we have that I want to grow so my kids can go to school one day. Why don't we do that? What do you think the guy, the clown man on the TV says we should do? The clown man on the TV says we should put it into Bear Stearns. Well, I guess the clown man on the television knows. I guess he knows what he's talking about.
And I wish he knew about a lot of the things that I had done, because I think he would have thanked me instead of attacked me for exactly what I had been doing. No one else has stuck their neck out the way I have to be able to say things are corrupt, things are bad. I'm probably the person who's gotten most trouble in America for trying to say, listen, we got to stop this madness. And yet
my nose is
because
filthy.
Of this fellow
Oh,
from
God.
From
All right, I'll be right back.
TV.
What lies around the corner? Never knowing who's going to kill you. Are you the next one to be murked? You never know if it's a friend or a foe. If you want to see the biggest names in BreadTube and Left Twitch and Butterthing and I don't know the fucking names anymore, come see Left Among
If you want us to advertise your channel or work, please go to weareserfs.com and email us a 20 to 30 second ad, and we'll take it on to the end of one of our videos to help promote your leftist channel or progressive something. Whatever you do.
To our God, I'm Rast, Xander Corvus, and Schlatsky, we shall commit blood sacrifices in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, our lives are yours to command. To our lords, Jeffrey Lamb, Trevor R., Stephen, Hans Josephine, Poppy Nelson, Ryan Lubin, Jimothy K. Meeblebeeps Jr., we bow meekly for your pleasure. To our knights of the round table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Bythe, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Political Puppy, Jimmy Bignuts, Andreas Chitoro, Good Poon Hates Cops, That's Solid Poon Then, Dr. Zayas, Yoppy, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Jack Darko, Thomas Barretton, J. Fraser Cartwright, Goofalankius, Melissa Murphy, Nicholas Marks, Alexander Thaler, Ali Rada Jaffer, Alex Gauvin, Radical Maniac, we salute you.